Hello, I am Jaime Elizondo from Real World Ranching, and today I will talk about a reflective seasonal topic, nature's winter lessons, what wildlife can teach us about recovery and soil health. There is something about late December that invites us to take it easy, to calm down, the way the cold settles across the land, the way the sun hangs lower every afternoon, the way frost decorates every blade of grass. It all seems to whisper, slow down, pay attention. Everything is teaching you something. Most ranchers think winter is the season when nothing happens. But winter is actually the season when everything is rebuilt. Grass growth slows down or stops, but the land's communication speeds up. Wildlife moves differently, leaving messages in snow and mud. Fungi keep working quietly under the surface of the soil. Livestock behavior becomes clearer. Soil tells the truth about last summer's management. And manure, yes, even manure, disappears or accumulates in ways that tell you more than any soil test can. This time of year, nature becomes the best teacher you will ever have. No projector, no slides, no classroom. Just lessons written across your pastures if you choose to see them. And today, I want to talk with you through some of these lessons. Because winter isn't there to punish us. Winter is here to remind us. Remind us of how nature's grazing was designed, reminds us of what real recovery looks like, remind us of how soil stays alive even in the cold, remind us that wild grazers have been managing land long before livestock and ranchers ever arrived. Remind us that nature wastes nothing. This blog is a reflection, a quiet end-of-year conversation about what nature is showing you right now if you pause long enough to notice. Long before we built fences, long before we synchronized breeding seasons, long before we thought about forage budgets or stockpile quality, wild herbivore herds were shaping ecosystems in ways we're still trying to understand. And winter was always part of the plan. And when I talk about wildlife grazing patterns in winter, I'm not just referring to bison or elk, though they are incredible teachers. I'm talking about everything: deer, rabbits, prairie dogs, birds, insects, possums, rodents, predators, even earthworms and fungi. Yes, they are wildlife too. In winter, every single one of these creatures adjusts its grazing, feeding, movement, and energy use in ways perfectly aligned with ecological rhythm. Let's look at how. In winter, wildlife does something brilliantly simple. They consume what the land offers without forcing the land to give more. For example, most deer begin shifting from high-protein forage to woody broods, buds, acorns, and the remnants of forks. They don't fight nature, they follow nature. Elk and bison instinctively move more, not less. Rabbits switch diets with remarkable flexibility. Birds adjust their foraging patterns daily. And squirrels, what do squirrels do? Well, they hoard acorns. The important lesson: nature never demands summer nutrition in winter, but ranchers often do. Cattle scouring a luxury growth in winter? That's a human caused problem because wild herbivores will never gorge on that kind of feed at this time of year. Wildlife adapts instantly to what the season provides, and in doing so, they thrive on balance instead of forcing outcomes. Nature's winter message is simple. Don't fight the season, work with the season. And this is one of nature's most reliable rules. Wildlife move, not because someone pushes them, not because they read a grazing manual, not because they're trying to build soil organic matter intentionally. They move because food availability shifts, quality changes, predators encourage movement, trampling pressure quickly affects comfort. Instinct guides them to avoid their own manure. The result? Well, they usually avoid overgrazing by design. They may hit an area hard for a period, but they always move on, if allowed, before sustained damage occurs. This is one of the deepest lessons ranchers need to understand. Overgrazing is a timing problem, not a stocking rate problem, because in nature, wildlife move. Wildlife hit one place intensely, but briefly. Then they don't return, if allowed, until it has fully recovered, often a year later. And on the other hand, livestock will revisit the same tender regrowth every day if we let them. But it's not a livestock problem, it's a management problem. Winter makes this contrast even clearer because you can literally see the evidence in the snow or frost. You can see where animals linger, where they avoid, where they graze lightly, where they graze deeply. And nature's message: move often, rest deeply. Fiber is not the enemy. In fact, for wildlife and cattle, it's the key to rumen function, gut health, and winter survival. Just watch deer or elk in winter and you'll see them eating cured stems, dry grasses, leaves, coarse material, woody twigs. Not because they prefer it over summer forage, but because winter demands it. If you watch a wild herd in January, you will not see scours. You will not see underdeveloped rumens. You will not see digestive crashes. Wildlife teaches us something crucial. Fiber is winter's fuel because fiber creates heat when digested. Protein is winter's luxury. Cattle need the same thing: steady fiber intake, not the too rich, too tender regrowth that causes cowards and ruins rumen function. Wildlife is never overloaded with lush forage in winter because nature does not produce lush forage in winter. The land and the animals are designed to work together, and nature's winter whisper is feed the rumen, not the eye. You will never find a natural system with enough area where wildlife consistently overgrazes an area. It doesn't happen. Not in the Serengeti, not in the Okavango Delta, not on the prairies, not in the savannas, not in brittle environments, and not in humid ones. Why? Because nature operates with rules that prevent it. Let's break down the key ecological principles that wildlife follow perfectly and that cattle depend on us to replicate. First, there are no fixed boundaries. Wildlife does not recognize property lines. They move until the land tells them to move again. And when food is abundant, wildlife spreads out. When food is scarce, wildlife concentrates briefly and then disperses again. This flexibility keeps the land from being overpressured in any one specific place. Now contrast that with modern ranching, where we create artificial boundaries and then ask the land to behave naturally inside those boundaries. That's fine if we manage movement intentionally. But if we don't, we create the perfect conditions for selective grazing and overgrazing. What can we learn from this, from wildlife? That movement prevents waste and recovery prevents damage. Predators create healthy grasslands, not by killing prey, but by causing movement. Wolves don't have to eat every elk. They have to encourage them not to camp in the same meadow for weeks at a time. Coyotes push deer, foxes push rabbits, raptors push rodents, and pressure creates a pulse. Pulse grazing is what built ecosystems long before humans existed. Cattle without predators become campers unless we mimic that pressure through thoughtful grazing management. Nature's message: pressure plus movement plus rest equals growth. And nature is efficient. What one animal leaves behind, another consumes. For example, ruminants and hindgut fermenters. Ruminants prefer leafy parts, while hindgut fermenters thrive on stems left behind by ruminants, achieving a complete or total graze. And what breaks down becomes soil food. What isn't digested becomes organic matter. What dies becomes nutrients. And what grows becomes habitat. In winter, this efficiency is even more obvious. Rabbits eat bark left by deer. Birds eat seeds left by wind. Small rodents gather stems and leaves dropped by grazing wildlife. Fungi uses dung, woody material, and dead roots to keep cycling nutrients. Fungi create spongy soils and long-lived soil carbon by digesting the fatty root exudates created by your grass when stockpiling after it gets over mature. Predators eat the weak, strengthening the herd. Nature wastes nothing because nothing is extra. But humans waste a lot, leaving uneaten grass behind because cattle were allowed to graze selectively, letting regrowth get repeatedly beaten, causing overgrazing, shorter roots, feeding hay too early because the stockpile acres were insufficient, allowing manure to be trampled but not biologically cycled, losing organic matter to oxidation instead of building organic matter. Nature shows us that nothing should go to waste, not even mistakes, because everything is a cycle. Everything has a purpose. Everything contributes to soil health if we let it. What is your land telling you right now? If I could take every rancher on a winter walk, I would, because winter walks reveal things you cannot see in summer. And here are the specific things I encourage you to observe on your land this month. These are winter's quiet lessons, subtle but powerful. Wildlife tracks. Snow, frost, and mud make wildlife traffic visible. So watch for deer trails, rabbit paths, coyote footprints, bare ground feeding patterns, rodent tunnels, cattle trails, concentration areas. And here is what I want you to observe. Where is wildlife spending most of the time? Where do they avoid? Where do they bed down? Where do they cross repeatedly? And where is grazing pressure naturally pulsed? These patterns show you natural corridors where animals prefer to move, and these often align with microclimates, moisture gradients, and soil fertility zones. Nature is always mapping the land for you. You just have to read the map. Manure disappearance is your microbial health scorecard. This is one of the most overlooked winter indicators. Go check your pastures. Look for manure from late summer or fall. Ask yourself, did it disappear? Is it crusted? Is it intact and dry? Does it break down rapidly? Is it being consumed by dung beetles? Is fungi colonizing it? Because manure disappearance tells you your soil biology activity, your fungal to bacterial balance, your organic matter cycling, your moisture retention, your carbon building potential, and the health of your previous growing season grasses. A pasture where manure disappears even in winter is a pasture with an active living soil. A pasture where manure piles for months is telling you the soil community is weak or missing key organisms. Healthy soil stays busy year-round, even when plants sleep. In winter, fungal activity becomes visual in ways that summer hides. So look for white fungal threads under cowpies, frosty-looking mold on woody material, mushroom remnants near tree lines, mycelial networks rebuilt under leaves, and decomposing grass stems with fungal growth. Fungi thrive on carbon-rich food, especially the fatty root exudates that mature grasses release when they are stockpiled. Your winter fungal presence tells you how well your land is building long-lived soil carbon. If you see fungi everywhere, your soil is on your side. If you struggle to find fungi, your soil may be stuck in a bacterial-dominant cycle which limits resilience, water retention, and organic matter longevity. And the message is, if fungi are thriving, your soil is thriving. And the condition of your stockpile is a mirror of your summer decisions. Winter stockpile doesn't lie. Whether you have thick uniform cover or patchy regrowth, bare spots, short raised areas, or a lot of standing hay with long stems, thin forage with low density, every inch of it tells you something. Winter stockpile shows how well you manage recovery, how much selective grazing was allowed. The more selective grazing you allow, the less stockpile acres you will have. Whether your grazing pressure was right, how resilient your plant community is, and whether your summer decisions honored nature's timing. If your stockpile is strong, you created margin. If the stockpile is thin, you created scarcity. Both are teachers. Wildlife are indicators of habitat quality. You can tell more about your land by the animals that show up than by any evaluation form. If you have birds flocking, rabbits active, deer grazing, coyotes hunting, foxes passing through, diverse insects even in winter, worms under manure, dung beetles in warm spells, your land is functioning. Wildlife presence is a sign of ecological comfort. Animals do not stay where they feel stress. And nature's message is wildlife follows health. Health follows recovery, and recovery follows good grazing. Winter can sometimes feel like a judgment, but I don't see it that way. I see winter as a conversation, a time when nature whispers truths we don't slow down enough to hear in the green season. And here are the key reminders winter wants to offer you. A. You cannot rush recovery. Wildlife never tries to force growth out of dormant plants. They wait, they move, they trust the cycle, but ranchers often want spring results in late fall. And that impatience is what damages the land. Winter says, let things rest, let things heal, nature knows how. And fiber is not waste, it's fertility. Those tall, over-matured stockpile grasses, wildlife loves them in winter. Cattle need them in winter. Bison needs them in winter. Fungi needs them. Soil needs them. Organic matter depends on them. Grazing them too early robs the soil of its long-lived carbon source. Winter says, let the plants finish their cycle and the soil will reward you. And movement prevents destruction. You see wild herds move constantly. If cattle did the same, overgrazing wouldn't exist. And it's not about stocking rate, it's about stock density and recovery time that we allow. Winter shows clearly where cattle camp too long because bare soil reveals everything. Winter is saying, do not let animals linger where nature would have moved them. Soil biology never sleeps. Even when plants pause, soil life keeps working. Fungi, bacteria, earthworms, dung beetles, microarthropods. All these creatures depend on us to manage grazing in ways that feed them. And winter exposes whether the underground herd is thriving or is starving. Winter says, take care of your soil herd, and your soil herd will take care of you. Because every stem has a purpose. Every leaf has a purpose. Every manure patty has a purpose. Every hoofprint has a purpose. And every movement of rest has purpose. Nothing is wasted. Winter says there is no waste in nature, only cycles that we fail to see. And here is what you can learn from nature this winter. Here are the takeaways I hope you carry with you into the new year. Number 1, observe before you decide. Wildlife watches the land constantly. They respond to cues we often ignore. This winter, walk your land with no agenda, just noticing. 2, accept what the land is showing you. Winter truth can stink, but it's also freeing. Once you accept what the land is telling you, you can begin to change the right things, not everything, just the right things. 3. Recognize that nature doesn't make mistakes. Nature doesn't overgraze, doesn't sculpt the land, doesn't stress the soil, and nature doesn't rush. Only humans do. But humans can also learn, especially in winter. 4. Understand that recovery builds soil, not rotation. Because walking cattle in circles is not the same as managing recovery. Recovery is the engine of regeneration, and winter shows exactly how well that engine ran last year. 5. Let wildlife be your classroom. Wildlife behavior reveals the natural grazing rhythm, the natural movement frequency, natural dietary adjustments, and natural responses to pressure. Their behavior is a blueprint for how we should manage our livestock with intentionally, not force. Okay, 6. Closing reflections. Winter is the season of clarity. As we approach Christmas and the end of the year, the land is quiet, but wisdom is loud. Winter is nature stripped down to the truth. No frills, no decorations, no illusions of abundance or control. It's raw, it's honest, it's alive, and it's generous. And if we pay attention, winter teaches us how grazing really works, how soil truly builds, how recovery happens, how wildlife shows the way, and how resiliency is created by rest, not pressure. And we need to stop fighting nature and start learning from it. I encourage you to walk your land slowly this winter. Noticing things you have overlooked. Follow tracks, touch the soil, break open a piece of stockpile, flip over a manure pad, look for fungi, listen to the quiet, because your land is speaking, and winter makes it easier for us to hear. Wildlife has been teaching these lessons for thousands of years, and they don't lecture, they don't advertise, they don't hold workshops or Facebook Lives. They simply live in rhythm with nature, and the land responds. And we can do the same. So as the year closes, take this with you. Nature is not your opponent. Nature is your mentor, and winter is your invitation to learn. Well, my friends, Merry Christmas. May the quiet season bring clarity, humility, and a renewed partnership with the land you steward. May God bless you, and I hope to hear from you soon.